In this section, we are going to learn what are CSS variables, and we are also going to see an example which you can use in your interview as well. Just like any programming language, there are variables where you can store some values and use them anywhere in your code. Similarly, CSS has the CSS variables, which are also called custom properties, in which you can store a value and use it anywhere in the code. To use the CSS variables, we need to follow two steps. One is the initialization, and second is the substitution. Let me write some code to understand what I have just said. So here I have these three divs with class name box1, box2, and box3. And now if I go to style.css, you can see all of the three boxes have the same background color with different heights and different margin bottom. Now let's say for some reasons I want to change this saffron color to red for all of the three divs. So for that I have to change this color at three places. Correct? Just imagine in a bigger application, updating the color at all the places would be more cumbersome. So now to overcome this problem, I can use the CSS variable. So the way we write is, so here I'm going to write it in the root element, and the syntax we can use to write a CSS variable is it should start with a double hyphen. Then you can give any name. I'm going to call it heading color. Okay. Now I can pass the color we were using before. So this is guys the first step, initialization. I need to close the bracket. And now to substitute it, I can use the var keyword, and inside the bracket, I can pass this heading color with double hyphen. And I need to do the same thing for all the places where I want to use this color. Okay. And now let me save it. As you can see, all the divs are of this color, right? Now the good thing is if now I want to change the color for all the divs, I just need to update it at a single place. So let me make it red and save. All the three divs are red now with a single change. And just like the variables in programming language, CSS variables also have scopes. So with this root element, whatever you write inside this has the global scope, which means this is accessible in your entire document. But if you want to limit the scope of a CSS variable, then we can do something like this. So let's say in this box one, I have another CSS variable, which is called bigger font. Okay, bigger font. And here I'll pass 20 pixel. Okay? And here I can use font size, then where. And inside the where, I can pass this bigger font. And guys, now you can see the one font size is 20 pixel now. Okay. And if I do the same thing for books 2 as well, font size where bigger font and save, see nothing happens because this bigger font has the local scope and it cannot be used outside these brackets. And guys, one more thing I want to tell you about CSS variables are that they can be used in the JavaScript files as well. And plus, it improves the code readability as well. In this section, we are going to learn the difference between REM and RM CSS units. This question is also asked a lots of time in the interview. And both of the units are relative units of size. REM is relative to the root font size of the HTML element, which is 16 pixels or so. But EM or M is relative to the font size of its parent font size. Okay, this is the only difference. So let's see an example to understand it better. And you can use this example in your interview also. Here I have two divs. One is using REM and another one is using M. Okay, and there is a parent class also, which is wrapping both of the divs. Okay, let's go to the style.css. Here, first element is using one REM and the second div is using M. Okay, now if I change the size of the parent, the font size of the parent, okay, let's see what happens. We make it font size to 20 pixel. And before saving it, you can guess what will happen because the REM does not depend on the parent size, correct? That's what we have learned. So this should not, the first element should not affect at all The second element, which is using the M unit of CSS, it should be affected by this parent font size because this M is relative to the parent element font size, correct? So if I save it now, you will see only the div which was using this M size is increased for it to 20 pixel, but the first element which was using REM is still of 16 pixel. And guys, there are other units also apart from these RAM and M like VW, VH, percentage, pixel. If you want me to create a video on those units also, please comment below. In this section, we are going to learn the difference between two CSS properties. One is the visibility hidden. The second one is display none. Both of these properties are used to control the visibility of HTML elements. But the difference is visibility hidden simply hides the HTML element, but it renders the element, which means the element is there on the screen, but user cannot see it. On the other hand, with the display none, the HTML element itself is not rendered. Let me show you an example also to understand, and you can use the same example in the interview also. So here I have three different divs, and in the styles, you can see there's a width, height, and some border color is there, 2 pixel border. And these boxes are of different color. Now let's say to the box 2, I want to give visibility done and save. With that you can see the green box is hidden now, but it's taking up the space. But if I comment the visibility hidden and after the comment, if I write display none, okay, first let me comment display none also so that we get the green box back. Now we have the green box back. And now if I comment the display none and save, now you can see the space also gone and the green box is also gone, which means it is not taking up any space, correct? And just to show it to you again, if I comment display none and keep visibility hidden, then you can see the space is taken. In this section, we are going to learn the difference between relative and absolute CSS position. This question is one of the most popular CSS interview question. Both of these properties defines how the element is positioned on the web page. To see the difference, I have come up with an example. So let's see that. Here I have a div with class name of b1, and if I go to styles, you can see I have provided some basic styles, width, height, border, and I've given position relative. Let me first of all, you can see there are some default margin here, right? To get rid of that, I'll be adding a universal selector here like this and say with that that margin is gone. And let me comment the relative position as of now and save. So this is the normal behavior of any div. If you give width, height, and border to it, this will be positioned like this, right? Now, if I uncomment the position relative and save, no difference at all. Because with position relative, the element will be positioned to its normal position, right? And normal position is this one, so it's position relative to this only. But to move this element around, we can add the some attributes like left 30 pixel and top 30 pixel. Okay, and save. With that, you can see the element has been pushed to the down 30 pixel and to the left 20 pixel. And it has been positioned relative to its normal position, which was here. And now, if I talk about the absolute position, for that, let's create one more div inside this B1 div and give it a class name of B2 that stands for box 2. Okay, and here I can write class B2. Okay, let's save it. And for the B class B2, I'll be adding some basic styles like width 20 pixel, height 20 pixels, and I want to have a background color of red. Okay, and I'll give it a position of absolute. Okay, and to show you how absolute works, I'll be commenting this B1 element, which is the parent of B2, right? And let's refresh it. With that, the B1 is gone and the B2 is placed relatively to the window. And that's what absolute does. It places the element relatively to the window until it's find a parent element which has some position. Okay. What I mean is if I uncomment this one, so now this B2 will find that, okay, there is a parent which has some position except static, then it will be positioned relative to its parent instead of the window. Okay. And if I save it now, you can see the box 2 is here, which is positioned relatively to its parent. Okay, and it's not positioned here relative to the window because the parent has the relative position. And there is one more difference with the absolute position. The element is no longer present in the normal document flow, but with relative position, the element is still in the normal document flow. In this section, we are going to learn the Kelsey method, and this is one of the most asked interview question. The interviewer might directly ask you what is Kelsey method, or they might ask you in a different way, like how do you calculate the values in CSS? So Kelsey method is used to perform calculations when you specify CSS property values. Simply put, you can do some basic maths with it. Let's see an example which you can use in your interview also. Let's say I have a div here with the container class, and inside that I have a navbar and then content and then the footer. Okay, let's save it. Here is our content. And now let's do some stylings. So I'll go to the styles.css. Here for the container, I have the styles. So it has the light gray background. And you can see there are some default margin there. So I'll get rid of that using the universal selector and passing margin 0 and padding 0 and save. With that, the default margin and padding is gone. And now I'll style the nav bar and the footer. So we are taking the width of 100%, height 80 pixel for the header and 80 pixel for the footer. And the color would be this light black. If I save it, it looks like this. Okay, and for the content, I want to have a different color. Let's say red. You can see here is our content. Now to use the Kelsey function, what we can do, the one of the simplest example would be to use the font size. So I'll be writing font size here. And here we can use the Kelsey function. This is the way we use the Kelsey function. And now inside the this round brackets, we can pass some expression, and the calculated value would be passed to this font size. I mean, whatever property we have here. So here I'll be passing, let's say 1 rem, okay, and into 5. That you can see the content gets the font size of 1 rem into 5. Okay, this is the simplest one. And we can also do other stuff with the Kelsey function. The other one which I want to show you is the height of the content. So right now header is here, footer is here, but I want the footer to be here at the bottom. And whatever space is left after subtracting the height of header and footer, that space I want to give to the content. Okay, so for that we can use the uh, height property, and here we can pass the Kelsey method. And inside the Kelsey method, I want to calculate whatever space is left after deducting footer and header space, right? So 100% minus both header and footer occupies 160 pixels, right? Because one height is 80 pixel. 80 pixel plus 80 pixel is 160 pixel. And now if I save it, you can say it takes the space, whatever is left after the space is taken by header and footer. So this is the another example. And one thing to note here is you can see we can play with different units also. So in Kelsey here, I'm passing the percentage, but here I'm passing pixels.